Hey, bro. So, I had us watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit this time around. And yeah, I have to admit, it was pretty much everything I remembered. It had been a few years since I watched this, but it's it's still one of my favorite movies. For when I was a kid, yay, boatload of cartoons. Now that I'm older, the full plot, the full intricate plot involved is why I absolutely love this movie. So, I mean, this is one of those classic movies at this stage, and it's considered a classic, and it's only 30 years old. Please ask me how I know it's 30 when this movie came out in '88. Oh, hey. And my notes are highlighting down there. Oh well. It's not like I'm going to bother to fix this in post or anything. So, I mean, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? It's a great movie, just in general. I mean, the plot seems rather simple on the surface. Roger Rabbit gets framed for murder of Marvin Acme, trying to solve the murder of Marvin Acme, and it's Judge Doom. Judge Doom dies. Yay! Turns out Doom's also the one who killed Eddie's brother. Alright. Except it's not quite that simple. This really is, in my mind, essentially Chinatown with cartoons. And we may have to watch Chinatown at some point so you can really get that, unless you've seen it. I don't know. I mean, it's Jack Nicholson being a nut. But no, it's more than that, because the whole driving force of this movie, everything this movie is actually about, Roger doesn't matter. He doesn't matter worth a damn. He's just some stooge. The murder of Marvin Acme, it doesn't particularly matter because it does matter, but that Roger did it doesn't fucking matter. It could have been anyone. They could have just left that as this cold case open. It's just that Doom had someone to blame it on now. And knew it. Because he conspired with Maroon, who was a Maroon, by working with him. The whole thing is the late 40s, early 50s switchover of it really is. It follows, it mirrors what actually happened in Los Angeles. Because they used to have the best public transportation system, maybe not in the world like Eddie claims, but definitely in the United States. And now, they don't. They just straight up don't. I've done more than my fair share of homework on public transportation systems. Why? Because I got fucking bored. And Los Angeles ranks down at the bottom. When they were post-World War II, 1947, hey, we're dealing with early post-war. When we're dealing with early post-war, they were probably the single best. And by the 60s, they were some of the worst. You know, what happened? Corporations banded together to buy out the public transportation systems, which is kind of what Doom did to the red car. He bought it to dismantle it. His own words. And the whole reason why Acme had to be killed was because Acme didn't want to sell the land that was going to go, which is where the freeway was going to move. Doom knew if he at least owned that land, along with some of the land that Maroon had, he would make an utter killing because the government would have to pay him a metric boatload more than what Doom paid. Doom paid this. Government has to pay this based on value of land. Doom has a boatload of profit in here. And that's what Doom was after. It was money. That's what this movie's about. This movie, fuck Roger, fuck Jessica. I mean, but that's... It's about the land rights. This is a land rights movie. This is where the good detective noirs fall. This is why I like this, why as an adult I love this movie, and why I love Chinatown. Because the plot you see is not the real driving force of the full plot. And then, of course, there's all of the fun contract negotiations that as a kid you don't think about, but as an adult, you do. The fact that this is Warner Brothers and Disney teaming up. They are working together here. These two hate each other, like actively hate each other. So they're working together. And I've watched way too many of the making ofs and all of the retrospectives and things like that because I have the 25th anniversary Blu-ray edition of this thing because I love this movie. And I watch it and it's the contract negotiations behind it are ridiculous. One of my favorite scenes where you have Mickey and Bugs, the big two from each of these guys. The biggest Looney Tune and the biggest Disney cartoon. While Eddie is falling. Mickey falls into frame first, but doesn't say a word. Bugs pops into frame and drops his tagline. "What's up, Doc?" That's when Mickey can finally start talking. The last spoken line in the movie. That's all, folks, from Porky Pig, Looney Tunes. The last character we see is Tinkerbell, who is infamously mute. They organized and frame by frame designed everything to be equal between those two companies. And apparently for the longest time, this held a record for longest credits because of all of the rights agreements between everybody. And if you go look out, you have now the big issues were Disney and Warner Brothers working together. Fleischer, who we see a couple of their characters, including Betty Boop, they weren't quite as strict as making sure these two big dogs didn't override everyone. And at this point in time, I found this one out. Droopy, the elevator operator. Watch your steps, sir. He's apparently owned by MGM. I didn't know that. He was owned by MGM. Now, if I remember right, I think he's Hanna-Barbera, which means Hanna-Barbera is owned by MGM. Because Warner Brothers owns the Looney Tunes, but Droopy is not a Looney Tune. Just like Quick Draw McGraw is not one of the Looney Tunes, they're Hanna-Barbera. I think Hanna-Barbera, because there's four companies involved here. There is Disney, duh. There is Warner Brothers, Looney Tunes, duh. There is Fleischer Studios, Betty Boop and a handful of other background characters. They actually wanted more of the Fleischer animation studio, more of those characters, which is kind of interesting, which makes this really amusing. But they couldn't get a hold of the people who were in charge of the rights to Fleischer Studios at that point. Now, the reason why I say that's kind of amusing, Dave Fleischer, the guy who voiced Benny the Cab, Roger, and a handful of other characters throughout the movie, apparently actually is related. He's a grandson, as far as I can find out. As far as I can tell, he is a grandson of the Fleischer brothers who started Fleischer Studios. I'm not sure if it's Dave, Max, Joe. There were four brothers that went in on this. Max and Dave are the top two heads. Yes. But there's two others. But there's two others floating around in the background, so as far as I can tell, he's the grandson of one of those four. Now, I don't know if it's specifically Max or Dave or Joe and I forget the fourth one. But he is tied in to, so they couldn't get the rights to Fleischer Studio stuff when they have one of the grandsons. And this is also apparently one of the few times that while Mel Blanc was alive, somebody else voiced a Mel Blanc character. Yosemite Sam. That was one of Mel's. But because he wasn't doing too well while he was alive, shortly before his death, they got somebody else in. There's very few characters who got voiced by anyone else while Mel was alive. At least in newer, because they didn't really make too much new creations while Mel was dying. The animators, the top tier animators, absolutely hate this because it messes with everything. I mean, this is a great movie from just watching, I want to get my hands on the freaking contract so I can read it over, because my God. Other things that are interesting, Eddie Murphy, considered for Valiant. Robin Williams, considered for both Valiant and Doom at different points. Honestly, I don't know how to feel about him being Doom. And the one that has been confirmed as true it's one of those, no, this isn't a rumor, we actually were trying to do this, from Zemeckis, who kind of, directed the fucking thing, and Back to the Futures, and a handful of other things. Zemeckis, first choice for Eddie Valiant, Bill Murray. They couldn't get the contact information for Murray's agent. So they decided, screw it. And apparently Eddie Murphy read the interview that said that sometime after the interview was printed in the mid-90s, and apparently screamed loud obscenities in the middle of a very public place, having found out that the role that he probably would have killed for got passed off because nobody could find his damn number. Now there is a reference in here that I know you like, but it's an anachronism, kind of. What you're thinking of and what I think of whenever I see this reference is an anachronism, but it's not actually. When they're talking to Angela, when Doom comes in and it starts, I'm looking for a rabbit, and puts up the rabbit dip, ha, $500 reward, Angelo speaks up. He goes, yeah, I see a rabbit. Yeah. Say hello to Harvey. You and I automatically assume that is referencing Jimmy Stewart's Harvey from 1950. This movie is set in 1947, therefore it wouldn't be an anachronism. No. Harvey, the movie we both like, is based on a play from 1944. So the play has been in existence for 3 years. I don't know how popular of a play it was. I can't speak to that. I couldn't. When you try to look it up, most of what you find is the remake and everybody shitting on it, the original and all the praise, and the occasional reference to the... You'll see the reference made in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. You'll see other references to it. You'll see a few other smaller remakes here and there. But these brief passing mentions of the fact that, oh, by the way, it started as a play. Now, Jimmy Stewart. No. Go back. No. Play? Yeah, it started as a play. But that doesn't matter. Jimmy Stewart. But I want to know about the... Jimmy Stewart. Play? Jimmy Stewart. I mean, yes. Don't get me wrong. I love Harvey. But I kind of want to know more about this play. And bottom of my notes here, last thing. Oh, I have one up here that's well before that. When he goes to the Ink and Paint Club, Scotch on the rocks. Scotch on the rocks. And I mean ice. Comes back and it has these large chunks of gravel. I almost wonder, is that the first appearance of Whiskey Stones? Because within the past decade or so, ish, the idea of using very cold, actual rocks to chill your whiskey has become a thing. Can we congratulate Who Framed Roger Rabbit for that? Because the rocks used are decent sized. Because he pulls one out, looks at it, drops it, tunes, and calls it good. But it's a decent size rock that he's pulling out of this tumbler. And it looks to be like a decent sized river rock and not too far different in the type of rock. I really have to take a close look at that and a whiskey stone. But it looks like a similar type of rock as what is used as a whiskey stone. So, that's kind of cool there. Now, the last thing. The main MacGuffin over everything, even though we don't think it is until the very end, and you realize that it is as you rewatch like 4 or 5 times as an adult, they really do keep track of the possession of the will, the love letter. They keep full track of that, and they show you who has it. When Benny shows up, Roger squeezes through the back window, and the will, the love letter, pops out. Eddie grabs it, looks at it, and goes, fuck it. And just you make sure you see that he purposely throws it into his jacket, which is amusing because he shows the corner of that when he's in R.K. Maroon's office right before Doom kills Maroon. Yeah, I got it right here. And pulls it out. He pulls out the corner of the love letter, which really is R.K. Maroon, or Marvin Acme's will. He's actually showing him the real will, but doesn't realize it. I love this movie. Because they show you who has it. From the instant Roger pulls it out as a love letter written in lipstick to his wife. Oh, I love this movie. There is so much that has been talked about on it. I don't know how much of it's made it to YouTube, but so much has been talked about it in so many places, it makes it hard to come up with anything new. I mean, the contracts, everyone knows about the contract. Well, granted, I love this movie. I grew up on this movie. This was the first movie I ever watched. Source my mother. Okay? This was the first movie I ever watched. I was born in May of '88. This came out in June. It makes sense. And please don't try to pull Jurassic Park as the first movie you watched. We already talked about that in our Doom playlist. And it was also in the Doom playlist where you corrected me that because between Roger Rabbit and Super Mario Brothers, I honest to God thought Bob Hoskins was American and possibly just from Brooklyn. Okay? Because that's what I grew up with him doing. I grew up with Bob Hoskins in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and then I saw Super Mario Brothers. And it's Bob Hoskins again, and it's the same damn accent. No, the dude's as British as fish and chips. Dude's as British as fish and chips. Damn. Oh well. But same episode of Doom. We talk about that. Is when it's either that one or the very next one. I'd have to go back through and rewatch our Doom playlist more thoroughly. But I know the Doom playlist is also where It's Nifty, damn it, comes from. Hey everybody, go watch the Doom playlist. We might eventually finish it. Who knows? And finally see the damn headless rabbit that Game Theory talked about in one of their recent videos. But watch them later. Watch the rest of our shit first. We have less content. But we're fixing it. But, yeah. There is so much that is in this. The light bump when they're sawing the frickin' handcuffs, that hitting the light so that it just sits there and swings, and they're animating How much of Roger is in shadow, how much is in light, when so many other movies would have just called it good at a single thing? No, 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 no. The animators went through and paid attention constantly to how the shadows would fall, not only on Roger, but also on Eddie. Because you see when the shadow appears on his coat sleeve and then disappears as it swings. They took the time to make sure they did that right. This is one of the few movies where a character is added in after the live action shots. And this goes for all of the characters. This is one of the few times where you actually feel like they are there. Between the way it's animated and the eye lines. Part of that brought about by a 3-foot-tall Roger Rabbit doll that they had floating around on, that they had. So Bob Hoskins, when he's holding up something, he's actually holding up a Roger Rabbit. He's holding up a Roger to stare square into the doll's eyes. And there were other things like that that they did, so they knew exactly where to look, so that they could animate the eye lines properly the whole way through. There's only one section where they screw up, and they fix that by having Roger stand up on tiptoe, because while it is still a close-ish shot, they have Roger on tiptoe because he's just looking a bit too high, is the problem. It's one of the few times that happens in the movie. But you always feel like Maroon, when he's talking about Dumbo right out the window. Yeah, Dumbo right there. I got him. The best thing is, they work for peanuts. Even it looks like he's seeing the fucking rabbit. The fucking elephant. Everyone feels like they see the characters the whole way through. You go back and watch the original Pete's Dragon. No. Nah. Nope. Not a fucking chance. Even the kid. Not a fucking chance. But I love the hell out of this movie. I always have. I could ramble on minutia of trivia the whole way through. I mean, the fact that Judge Doom's little shoulder cape thing, whenever he's inside, flapping in the wind. Hey, he might be a tune. The fact that turpentine, benzene, and acetone, well, they can irritate your skin a little bit in very strong, large mixtures. They're not going to fuck you up. They're not going to do much to you. They're going to dry out your skin. Yet Doom wears these freaking elbow gloves whenever he's handling it. The oversized teeth. The mannerisms, the way he moves, because it's either a little bit too stiff or way too fast. They tell you from his introduction that he's a goddamn tune. But I know so much about this movie. I love this movie, and I can say that when I started watching it though. And I have to address this. When I started watching it, I wasn't watching it to someone who loves it. I wasn't watching it to someone who is regularly entertained by it. I was criticizing it. I was sitting there criticizing this movie, being a dick to it, whilst quoting line by line. I can tell you the name of the kid who's jumping onto the red car. Zeke, by the way. I don't need the subtitles to tell me that. I know it's Zeke. Zeke is the kid who got left behind by his friends because his ass was too slow to jump on the back bumper of the red line. And as they're all getting off, Bob Hoskins thanks the kids for some cigarettes. Hey, thanks for the cigarettes. Right before he goes up to the, and I can't, I've never been able to remember the name of the bar that's above the red car's storage. Just never been able to. But he goes up there And that's when he hands her the paper. Is this paper any good? Check the scrawl. I know this movie, okay? I love the hell out of it. But I was criticizing it while quoting it line by line with the movie. And I'm sitting there going, I had to stop and go, wait, why? Because I'm looking at it like a critic does. So I stopped and I went back and I started rewatching Death Machine. Death Machine. Who made me so angry I chipped a tooth? Death Machine. I got about halfway through-ish, and I was enjoying it. I was active. I couldn't summon the rage. I probably could have summoned the same type of rage, but it was just a dumb bad action. It's a dumb bad action. It's a bad action, but it's a dumb bad action from '94. Okay, cool, whatever. Because I turned off that critic part of my mind that I'd used going into it. I hadn't used that when I watched Sharknado. I definitely didn't use that when I was watching Doom. Otherwise, I would have been ripping this thing to shred. Otherwise, I would have ripped that to shreds. I sure as shit didn't use it with Fistful of Dollars, because I just loved that movie. Because I looked at him as just a regular viewer, not some proper critic. No, fuck that, man. I hate that type of bullshit. I mean, nostalgia critic. That's part of the joke. He points out the flaws and he praises it where it's good. Go watch one of his recent ones on Country Bears. I kind of want to see that now. Simply because, okay, I avoided it because I heard it was trash, but a lot of the jokes they're talking about, okay, that's kind of funny. This looks like it might actually be a halfway okay movie. I mean, not saying it's a masterpiece, but good. I'm not a critic. I'm just someone who loves movies. So why the hell did I try to do that to Death Machine? It's a movie. Watch the fucking movie. Don't critique the movie. I'm here to talk about what I thought of the movie as someone who watches it, not as a critic. So I kind of screwed that up on you, bro. So, I'm not saying immediately throw another bad one at me. Let me buy a mouth guard first. But I know what my problem was. I know what my problem really was when it came to Death Machine. Because I carried it over into Who Framed Roger Rabbit, a movie I watched once a week at a minimum while I was growing up. I mean, the things that I remember watching on a religious basis, every summer, within the first week, I would watch all 5 tapes that I had of Ninja Turtles. The first movie, Secret of the Ooze, making of Ninja Turtles, Ninja Turtles 3, Ninja Turtles Tour. I would watch all 5 of those within the first week. Once a week, over the summer, definitely over the summers, I watched Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I pulled out my now 30-year-old copy. Okay, and I did that up until I was 18. I did both of those. Both of those were religious, just constant watches. I added on watching my favorite anime from beginning to end and its first movie every year once I started watching that. Kimakura Rangidoro. I started watching that every year. All 48 episodes and the movie. Every year. So, why the hell was I critiquing Who Framed Roger Rabbit? No, I loved this movie. Why was I doing that? I realized I was looking at it like a critic, not like just someone trying to watch a fucking movie for entertainment purposes. Just nothing else. I want my escapism back. So I turned off that part of my head, went back and started watching Death Machine. Yeah, it's stupid. Yeah, it's bad. But at least it was entertaining. I'm not going to do that to Sharknado 3. Oh, hell no. I'm done. The pun was unintended. I'm done. Tell me what you thought of it. I'm done right after that. Nope. Bye.